Be recorded. If you do not wish to have your face in the recording, just turn your camera off. And yeah, we'll get started here. My name is Madison. I use she, her, they, them pronouns. I am on the board of directors for Elsewhere Studios, and I focus on equity, access, and inclusion in our programming. And I've been on the board for about a year and have attended Elsewhere Studios for residency twice. Very excited to share with you some information today. And I'm going to also introduce Carolina, who is our executive director and has been a part of the program for many years. And we are going to go over the application for the parent residency and answer any questions that you might have. A couple of housekeeping things. As I said, the session's being recorded. If you haven't already, take a moment to rename yourself with your first name and your pronouns. Please keep yourself on mute during the presentation. If you have a question that comes up, feel free to pop it into the chat and I will keep an eye on it. Or we can also have time for people to ask questions over video at the end as well. And with that, are we gonna, oh yeah, let's see here. Carolina, do you want to share your screen while I talk about the building a little bit? Is that where you want to get started?
Yeah, that sounds good. I'll share my screen with the website.
Awesome. And oops, sorry, one moment here.
Can you guys see my screen? Okay.
Okay. Do you want to get started, Carolina?
Sure, yeah. Well, hello, everyone. Like Madison said, I'm Carolina. I'm the director at Elsewhere Studios, and I'm so excited to see people here interested in learning about our parent residency. And this is our first information session that we've done like this. And so we're just going to have a casual presentation about our program, about the parent residency, walk you through the application process. We'll actually just show you the application and go through every question. And yeah, so we'll go ahead and get started. Some of the history and context of our program can be found on the website, more about our history and elsewhere. We do want to show you all the studios and living spaces to give you all more of an idea of what it's like to be a resident here. And Madison, feel free to jump in at any point and add anything.
Yeah. So the first thing to note about the accommodations that we offer, as of right now, none of the accommodations within Elsewhere's building are wheelchair accessible. So what we can offer is that right now, if you are a wheelchair user and you want to apply to the parent residency program, we do have accommodations for wheelchair accessible lodging that's about a half a block down from our main building. Please let us know prior to applying if this is something you're interested in, and we can provide you with more information about that space too. But from there, going into the space, so it's a very quirky, colorful, beautiful old building, 3 floors, and it's a very communal, cozy type of residency space. So this is the main floor where there's a large kitchen, and then there's stairs leading up to the 3rd floor here. Is this in slideshow view? Do we want to go through each individual space and talk about those rooms?
Yeah.
Or? Okay.
Yeah, so that was the common space. Also note, we have a elsewhere resident cat, and he is a big cuddler. And so for all of those who have cat allergies, let us know. Beware, he loves to hang out in all the spaces, but we can accommodate for cat-free spaces with notice and air purifier and vacuum.
Yes. And so there's a couple different workspaces depending on where you're staying. This is the main studio, which is connected to the loft and the gingerbread house. I think that what most people will be doing, though, is applying for the suite or the basement, correct?
Yes, so just to give a quick overview of the parent residency, it's two artists at a time, with the option of bringing their families. So the spaces that are most appropriate for families is the suite and the basement, and then we'll have the additional spaces like the gingerbread house and the loft available for extra beds if the families need to spread out.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the studio that would be used by the family in the suite.
Do we need to show the loft room then?
The loft, yeah, so this loft room is an additional space if needed. And
Mm-hmm.
this is on the main floor next to the communal kitchen and that main studio. The gingerbread house also would be auxiliary space, which is nice to have for the parent artist to go into the gingerbread house and that be their writing studio. So we've had some of the parent artists do that where they use these extra spaces to work in. So these are just a couple more pictures.
Yeah, and the gingerbread house is a really cool space. It's like it's lofted. It has its own little stove to keep yourself warm in the winter. There isn't a restroom facility within that unit itself. It is in the main house, so that's a note on accessibility too, if that's something you want to consider as well. This is the suite. It's the third floor it's the top floor of Elsewhere Studios. It has a much more like open kind of setup that can also be a workspace. And what's nice about it is that there's two bedrooms, and as you can see, a bathtub with a view into the little space there. So it's very ideal for the parent residency too, because you can have your own private space, and also any children that or partners that might come with, there's also a room for them to use. And yeah, love this space a lot. And this one has its own bathroom, shower, and bathtub on that floor.
Mm-hmm.
And then the basement has actually its own separate entrance. You walk down, I think, about 10 to 12 steps to the lower ground, and then you enter the space and another more open floor plan. There's a large workspace with its own kitchen, one bedroom, a bathroom, and this space also has a sauna attached to it, which is very relaxing, especially, yeah, if you need a little decompression. That's the sauna.
Yeah. And what is not shown here is in the past, I mean, like you can see, there's just one full-size bed, but we also have this kind of like larger sofa bed that parents have used for small children, or also if just depending on how many beds you need. Like I said, we have those auxiliary spaces, or we can, with notice, acquire some extra air mattresses or something. So,
Mm-hmm.
and this is some of the outside pics. There's a lovely backyard, and Elsewhere is situated just around the corner from downtown Peonia.
And downtown Peonia is about 2 blocks long,
Mm-hmm.
to give you some context.
Yeah. So, Madison, do you want to talk about Peonia a little bit more, and then I'll just jump into the structure of the family
Yeah.
residency?
So I will provide just some kind of demographic information about Peonia. So right now, Peonia is about 95% white. It is, an old mining town where there's now a lot of agricultural um, projects, a lot of farmers, and but I think what's unique about this place that it's turned into this town where there's a lot of people who are in like transitory space. So a lot of artists and creatives have migrated out here, and it's a very interesting collection of people from very different backgrounds who are all living in the town together, and they are all just kind of doing their own thing. And what's really great about Elsewhere Studios is that because of where it's situated in the town and because of the town's population, we're able to have quite an impact and a reach on the community. So Elsewhere is kind of considered like a town institution. There's a lot of people here that have been and continue to be very supportive of the artists that come through and are really excited to see what kind of programming is coming. So there's a lot of support from the town for the work that we do, and a lot of other creatives who have attended the residency and have ended up moving to Peonia. I think we've counted about 12 people in town right now who are past residents that just absolutely fell in love with rural living and the town and have decided to stick around. So if that gives you kind of an idea of what it's like here. Yeah, there's a whole lot of farms and like vineyards, some of the most delicious wine I've ever had, a lot of local meats that are offered. And because of this being an epicenter of creativity, there's a lot of like workshops and yoga and other really cool things to attend around town. Like you don't really have to plan out your week, because if you just walk out the front door, somebody's going to invite you to something. And that's if you want to be in a more social setting. You can
Mhm.
also hide away at Elsewhere and do your work. That's totally up to you, but it's kind of a choose your own adventure format in terms of how you want to engage with the community. um, yeah, and Paonia is pretty remote, so the next town over is feels like maybe less than a mile long just driving through it, and then the next town over is about a 30-minute drive. So a lot of people will utilize, there's a message board in Peonia, and if people are like, I need this type of paper or paint for a project I'm working on and I don't want to make the drive to Delta, um, more likely than not, if you were to post on this message board looking for something, someone in town wants to help, especially when it's art residents. A lot of people are really excited for the opportunity to help people
Mhm.
with that. um,
Yeah, that's true. And I'll just say with that, it's also it's about an hour and a half from the nearest airport that we can pick you up in with notice. Some people drive because, like Madison's saying, things are kind of far apart, and you might want to go check out the canyons or go to the hot springs and explore. And it's nice to have a car to do that because it is accessible by car, but you can also fly in and then we can pick you up. And sometimes one resident will have a car and one doesn't, and they can connect together to go on these field trips to either just go to the grocery store. There is a grocery store in town, but there's another one 10 miles away that artists like to go to, or to go on these field trips to go hiking. Um, Great. So, with that, Madison, can you just double check? It's still recording, right?
yes.
Okay. So, I'm going to move on to the family residency structure, if that feels good. This is our going to be our third year hosting the family residency. We were fortunate enough to receive funding from Sustainable Arts Foundation, which I'm sure most of you know about, but in case you don't, Sustainable Arts Foundation is a really amazing grant program that supports parent artists as individuals through funding their projects. And then they also fund residency programs to help build a family program. And so we got our first grant to host residents in 2019. And at that point, it was structured a little bit differently because it was our first time doing it. And we've kind of dialed it in from feedback from that first year. And because we had artists who came for 2 weeks, some artists that came for 1 week, and 2 weeks felt too long, 1 week felt too short. So now our residencies is 10 days. So we are going to be selecting 4 artists for the month of July 2022. And the selected artists receive a free 10-day residency. They get an $1,000 stipend to be used however they see, however they want. And also they have the option to bring their family with them, which is a pretty unique offering. And then they also get our community resources and connections. So, we've had artists who want to connect with food growers in our community, and we know that from their application. We talk beforehand, and when they get here, we've already connected them with people so they can hit the ground running. And we can talk more about that when we go through the application process. But understanding that it's a short residency, that when the artists arrive, they kind of just need to have everything lined up so they can just get into the studio or go outside wherever their art practice takes them and be ready to work. So while we don't connect, or I just want to say that we can assist in finding childcare, summer camps, things to do for the family. We're not responsible for making that happen, but we'll send as many suggestions as we can to the parents before arriving. So for this past year, for 2021, for our 4 artists, we met over Zoom 2 months before they arrived to introduce each other, because only 2 of them overlap. So I wanted everyone to meet face to face online, and also just get to know their needs a little bit more and what they want to do while they're here, so I can try and connect them beforehand. And like we said, it's either the basement apartment or the suite, and then we'll have those auxiliary spaces. And the first cohort, the first 2 artists, will arrive July 1st and be here till July 11th. And then we have a couple days in between to turn over, and then the second cohort of the 2 artists arrive July 15th and stay until July 25th, I believe it is. So I just wanted to show a little bit, and all of this can be found on our website, information of the artists that we've hosted in the past. You can read a little bit more about their work and their projects. I won't go too much into it. We are open to collaborations. I do want to say something interesting that happened last year was Kaylin and Lee applied as a collaborative team to be here, and as it got closer, one of them was actually due to have a kid during the residency time, so wasn't able to come. So she had a stay-at-home residency, where her collaborator came and had an in-person residency at elsewhere, and then they communicated and worked together still, even though they were apart. And so that felt really important to just know that it can be flexible in that model, and still very important to be able to support parents and specifically mothers at that moment in that way. So here's some of the pictures. Another really cool thing that has happened throughout the past 2 family residencies is the opportunity for the children in residence to also work on their own art. And we've had different, we've had 2 families were here at the same time, and their children were all around the same age, and they ended up collaborating on a short film that one of the dads helped film, and then they presented it during the open studios, and that doesn't need to happen. That's not something that is a require. It's just nice. It's like if they feel like they have art that they want to share, then we're very open to it. And so last time we had Luna here, was working on a book and some drawings. May, her mom, is a poet, and so they did a shared presentation. There's Lisa with her kid in the studio. So, but a lot of times too, the family goes off on outdoor adventures, and then the artist can stay and work in the studio. Also wanted to mention that last summer we were able to host a podcast with Artist Mother Podcast, which Kaylin, who was in residence, she does this podcast. And so if you want to hear more about Elsewhere and then the artists, and they also interviewed a local artist mother as well and discussed motherhood and being an artist, and Elsewhere, that is available online. And then some of our 2019 artists as well, and you can read more about them. I also wanted to mention, I've been getting some emails, questions if this is open to international artists, and it is. So we accept national and international artists for this opportunity. We're happy to help with any kind of letter that people need to be able to get a visa to come here. And we're also open to any kind of artist. So some of these past selected artists were performance artists, writers, poets, visual artists, podcast artists. One person was working on a community specific project around food, stories around food, especially when it comes to migrant workers, refugees, immigrants, and did a documentary. So we are very open to any kind of art. So with that, I'm going to show you how to access the application. Does that sound good, Madison? Okay, and we'll all walk through the application together and then open it up to any questions that y'all have. So from our website, you can either, we have a sort of a gallery of opportunities on our website. Main page, probably just easier to go to the family residency page. But anyway, you can click onto it, get to the family residency page, and then under the flyer there is an apply now button, and that'll take you to our submittable. The deadline is December 17th, and that is midnight. December 17th. Sometimes I get confused when I'm applying for things. I'm like, is it 5 p.m.? Do I have the whole day? And it is midnight, but I believe it's midnight Mountain Time. So take that into consideration, depending on where you live in this world. And there's some more information here about the opportunity. There is a $20 application fee. We don't want this to be prohibitive to anyone. So if any artists feel like that application fee is restrictive, then they can email us and we can work with them. So if you've used Submittable before, which I have, then it automatically fills your address information. So this is Elsewhere's info that's on here. So you can change that if it's not current, and then you save the address and continue. And scroll down. So on the application, we ask for a title, and this can be anything. It's just a way for us to organize the applications, and it could be the name of your book or your movie, or it could be just your name or anything. And something that we like to talk about a lot is just understanding that when you apply and by the time you get to elsewhere for your residency, if selected, many things might change and your project might have morphed. You might be interested in something else, and that is okay with us. So this isn't set in stone. Upon arrival, or a little bit before arriving, we'll ask you for an updated bio or artist statement intention of time at elsewhere to be able to advertise your time here, and then you could send an updated version of your project if it has changed. Describing your primary mediums for your proposal. We have a section to drop in a resume or CV and different accepted file types. And this is not a requirement for the application. Nice to have, but if you don't have one, that's fine. You don't have to draft a whole new thing for this application. Same thing for website. If you have a website, drop it in, or an Instagram if it has your art. If not, you can leave it blank. Requirement is artist statement, maximum 300 words, and this is just to give the jurors some understanding of who you are as an artist, what you're working on, and what you're interested in exploring through your art. List 3 adjectives to describe yourself. This is our fun question, which, you can think as hard as you want about it, but it's just a way for us to get a glimpse at your personality. This residency is, very unique. It's communal. It's in a funky house and a quirky town with, very community-oriented people. We just like to get a glance at people's personalities to see if they're a good fit for the type of residency we offer. It's possible to have a residency where you keep to yourself and stay in the studio, but it's by no means an isolated, secluded retreat style residency. And along that, we ask for your intention for your time spent at elsewhere. And like I said, that might change, but just for us to get an idea of what you want to work on and see that you have a plan for your time.
I'll just add to that too.
Mm-hmm.
So what the Carolina won't be reviewing these applications. It's a group of panelists. And what the job of the panelist is to do is to be able to see if there's if you're able to articulate a way to carry out an idea. Like what a panelist wants to see is that you're able to, even if you're going to change what your project is over the next year, that it's just that you're able to conceptualize and carry out a creative project. So if it changes, we don't mind, but we just want to see that you will come here and spend your time for the best of your ability. And yeah, that's all I was going to add.
Thanks, Madison. Yeah, and with the next question, how is residency important to your work? Because it is, this is obviously an opportunity that is so, residencies are important in general, and then parent residencies are very important because it's restrictive to, go off to a residency and potentially leave your family behind or your job. So we understand why in those ways it might be important, but just specifically why maybe coming to elsewhere is important for you, whether it's the community, the location, things that we find very strong in applications is people who have done their research with our program. They resonate with what we do, what we value, and also just the space as well. And we're open to writers who write who are in their studio writing a book and maybe not interacting in the community as much, but it is important for us to feel like people did the research, which y'all are obviously doing by coming to this webinar and feeling connected to our space, not like a one-size-fits-all application that feels like you could have written it for any residency that exists. and the projected size and medium of work during your time elsewhere, just so we understand what space will work best for you, and um, and see if you need any special equipment, which we have a section in the bottom too for any kind of special needs that whether that's equipment or connections.
And again, your project and your size, or your project and your medium, can change from when you apply to when you arrive. This is just to give us an idea of what kind of accommodations you'll need for working in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if we can't, we don't really have a ton of equipment for, let's say, metal fabricators. So if that is going to be your main medium, potentially we could connect you with somewhere that has it, but it might not be a good fit because we might not have those connections to like get welding equipment. So, um, okay, so we're gonna go to the examples of work, and talk a bit about this. So, um, it says here 10 images or combination of images and video of work created in the last 2 years, slides, photos, CD, website, etc. Please include a description sheet listing each slide and title, date executed, dimensions, and media. I will say we are pretty flexible with that 2 year aspect that is in there, but we also understand it's been a pandemic. People have families, so if it's within the last 5 years, that's fine. That's not going to disqualify you. It's just to gauge, I would choose something that's the most recent and the most relevant to what you will be working on during your time at elsewhere. Um, and so we have a couple of requirements. So if you are a literary artist, we have a 10-page maximum of writing sample, and please use a 12-point easy to read font, and double spacing, and composers for samples that best display your style and what you intend to work on during your residency. So this could also include video work, or documents. And then multidisciplinary can be any combination of the above. So if you work in video, sculpture, and writing, and you're going to be working on all those three things while you're in residence, then drop anything that you feel like best represents your work and what's most relevant to what you will be working on there. And so it does, under each file type, it lists the accepted files. So JPEG, TIFF, SVG, which I don't even know what that is, GIF, PNG for images. And so, yeah, it lists all these different text documents, audio files, or video files. As of right now, I have not found that Submittable has a maximum file size that anyone has reached at this point. I think it's pretty big. I just dropped a really large TIFF image in here and it loaded and it was just fine. So most things within reason should be good. If you're uploading something very large, like a movie or something, just compress it so it is a good size. And with that, you'll want to put some work sample descriptions so we can better understand what materials you're using, what dimension it is, any other notes you want to add. Some people who are more, who are artists that are working on socially engaged projects that are a bit more ephemeral than, say a drawing, then here is where they put in sort of how they worked within the community, what the project was, and but then the images will be above. And the rest of the application is just information for us to gather in terms of if you are selected, we'd like to know if you will be bringing your spouse/partner and children. And if that is a no, then you write no and you don't have to answer the rest of the couple questions underneath. But if it's yes, then we'd like to know the names of your partner or children, and also ages, so we can We also like to kind of pair, families that have kids that are similar ages. That's worked really well for going on field trips and just making friends really fast. Not that it lines up perfectly every time, but it's good to know because sometimes we also find fun toys that are age appropriate to whatever your kids' ages are, and then just needing to know if you need childcare. Like I said before, we don't arrange that, but we will give you all the contact info you need to arrange it yourself if that's what you want. Some people haven't needed it, but I'll give you a bunch of summer camp options or different things. Or in the past too, we've connected artists and their families with other families in town for play dates or stuff like that. Describe any special accommodations. This could be where you write in if you need housing that is wheelchair accessible, or if you need special equipment or connections to community members, if you have cat allergies. Trying to think of anything else, but this is the place to write it. So we can keep that in mind if you get accepted. And then here, this is just the first choice, date of arrival. It says length of stay, but all residencies are 10 days. So here you'll just type in, I want the first session. There may be a session that works better for you, and we will try and give everybody their first choice, but sometimes it's hard with the Tetris, but just let us know what is the most ideal starting date. First choice of living, which is either the basement or the suite. And then the rest of the questions are just kind of demographic questions to help us keep track. We also have, how did you hear about this opportunity? Anything else you'd like to add? If you feel like we missed anything in the application and you want to let us know something, here is the place to put it. And then we have some data collecting questions about age, race, ethnicity, gender pronouns, and do you identify as LGBTQIA+, application fee, and then you're done. And you can save your draft at any point and come back to it before December 17th at midnight Mountain Time. So that is the application. Thank you all for patiently going through that with me. Madison, do you feel like that covered it?
I think that's pretty good. I think we have plenty of time now for questions. If anybody has questions, feel free to just unmute yourself and go for it.
Or drop in the chat, whichever.
Or drop them in the chat, yeah.
I have a question as far as the artwork that's being submitted. Can like in process work be submitted if like we're in the middle of a new body of work? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yes, I mean, I would say it'd be nice to have maybe some completed work to give context of what you have in mind, and then if you are in the middle of something, drop that in too, especially because that's the most recent thing, probably the thing you're most excited about as well. And then in the description, you can write what it is and that it's in progress.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, we have a couple questions in the chat. Can we mail materials to ourselves prior to arriving? Yes, definitely. I would say that anything that you absolutely need for your artwork, just mail it to yourself beforehand, and we'll give you all of that details of the mailing address, and we'll hold it for you. I wouldn't send it like a month or two advance, but obviously we'll hold it for before you get here, because the closest arts and crafts store is 30 miles away, and they don't have everything, but you can order online and things get here relatively fast, but it's a short residency, so you want to have everything you need. So yeah, I would definitely say mailing things beforehand.
And then the next question after that one is, how do meals work? Do residents cook meals in the common kitchen? Are they planned meals together? I would say, so you're kind of thinking about the space, like it's a residency space, but it's kind of like it's your own unit, it's your own apartment. So, you know, we provide a kitchen and a fridge and everything you would need to cook for yourself. There are a lot of people who, when they come here, the residents meet right away and they kind of decide, you know, like, what kind of, are you a morning person? Do you have any food allergies? Do you want to cook together? So we kind of leave it up to, you know, the adults to communicate and decide what works best for them. As far as food resources go, we are in the valley where there's a lot of farming, and there's a lot of fresh produce and places to, you know, go shop together and like buy a bunch of stuff for sharing food. So yeah. Do you want anything you would add, Carolina?
No, yeah, that's basically how meals work. I did want to add something that I realized I didn't mention before, which is events. So with the parent residency, each cohort hosts some kind of event, and we help put that on, but they have an opportunity. I guess I talked about with the presentation with the kids too, but that can look many different ways. Like the podcast artist did a live recording of the Artist Mother podcast episode, and so we invited community members to be an audience for the live podcast recording. We had a zine making workshop by Laura Deutsch. That was a family-friendly zine making workshop around creative ritual making. So at some point during those 10 days, the artists have some kind of event where they share their work and process with the community. Obviously during COVID, it's been kind of like a half online thing, a little bit in person. We'll be figuring it out, but we meet with the cohort prior to their arrival and discuss what they would ideally like to do, because some artists like to meet the community right when they arrive, and maybe that meet and greet style presentation happens right when they get here, or maybe it happens at the end where they can share the progress of their work. So I just wanted to give a little bit more context to that. I have a question here. How would you apply as a two-person collaborative? If you are applying as a collaborative team and you'll be working on a joint project and goal, just do one application. And if you have prior examples of that collaboration, awesome, that's great, we'd love to see it. If not, just describe it to us, and then put in images or work descriptions from the individual, so just so we can get an idea of each artist's work and then kind of better understand the collaboration. So yeah, you can just apply as for one application, but I will say I did get a question the other day about an application for two partners who are both artists and parents, but have a separate art practice. And then I would say to apply separately if it's going to be individual projects.
And then the next question is clarifying the submission fee. So there's a $20 submission fee, and we do not want that to be an access issue for anyone. So if that is going to deter you from applying, please send us an email prior to applying and we will work with you to accommodate that. And then do we offer limited financial assistance for BIPOC artists? So we have multiple different programs. Yes, we offer financial stipends for BIPOC artists, and I'm actually working with the organization to increase those funds so we can offer more money. This residency itself is fully paid for, and it does include a $1,000 stipend. I don't know if we have additional resources to offer for BIPOC at this time for the parent residency, but that is something that we can look into in the future for sure.
Yeah, and I will say with that, yeah, Madison is we're looking to increase those funds right now. We have this opportunity that includes a stipend. We have a specific call for Indigenous poet that includes a $1,500 stipend, and then for a regular residency program, we do have limited financial assistance, which right now looks like $250 off their residency. So, and we have different 600 to 850 a month, and then they get 250 off. So that's just a little bit more context for that.
Yeah, and to be even more transparent with that, we do not own the building that we rent. So we, as an organization, pay rent to the person who owns the building that we are housed in. So we are working as hard as we can to lower residency fees, offer more financial support, while also working with that kind of limitation at this time. So next question, do you have much pasture type or grassland that cover grows on there, or is it more dry in regards to their work? Do you want to answer that, Carolina?
I don't know. We do have a lot of pastures and farmland. I mean, so
It's high mountain desert.
yeah,
So
Peonia is, yeah, where the high mountain desert, yeah, desert meets the mountains. So we're like in this very interesting climate. There's a lot of irrigation here. So we have green farmland. So I want to say yes in town, but I'm not 100% sure. And if you would like to know more, I can ask. I live with a farmer, so I can ask and see what they say. Nina, if you want to write us an email to remind us to look into that.
yeah, if you wanted to share more specifically what your project is, we can maybe give you a clear answer around that too.
Hiya, I have done a project, an ongoing project for about 20 years, where I find and I grow and I distribute 4-leaf clovers. So I was wondering if there's like clovers grow there, if there were places where I could search for them.
That's a good question.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, we'll look into it and see if we
Cool.
can find that information for you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Cool.
I feel like I should know that. But
I love that question.
yeah,
We've had that one before.
we're unprepared for this one. All right, I'm going to keep moving on because we have some more questions. Do you recommend applying with a partner collaborator with their own family that would occupy the other accommodation, or is a solo project okay? Yeah, solo project is totally fine. If you want to apply with your individual art practice and your partner is or is not an artist, or neither is your family, that is fine. That's what the parent residency is. You know, it's what it's there for, to support you as an artist and for the family to come and enjoy, or also they don't have to come either, or they can and go on field trips and enjoy their time here while you get time to have space in the studio. So hope that
There's a lot to do in town too, so I'm sure they won't be bored. Is the stipend given prior to arrival if using it towards something like a plane ticket?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We've kind of done a combination of both. I've given artists their stipends upon arrival, but I've also have given a portion of it before arriving, because I know that reimbursement is sometimes not that accessible because you don't have the money at that moment to buy a plane ticket or whatever that needs to be purchased. So yeah, so that can all be individual. If someone really needs a portion of it to buy their plane ticket, I'm happy to give it to them beforehand and then the rest upon arrival. But if there is no preference, then I prefer to give it upon arrival. Is there an age limit for the children you are applying with, or is this flexible? This is flexible. Mostly it's been children under 18. But yeah, if there's no max age limit, you can, whether they're coming or not, I would say.
Yeah, maybe if they're a dependent of yours or if they're living in your home as your children, I would say that that's fine, and if they're over 18.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Next one, my son will be almost 16 then. I'm a sole mother artist. Would you say would be a suitable space for me to bring my son at this age? It's his birthday at the end of July.
Yeah, yeah, be a great place to spend his birthday. Yes, I would say that it would be a great place for your son to come to. There's so many fun things that happen in July. There's, if you're here as part of the first cohort, there's Cherry Days, which is a long-standing annual tradition for July 4th parades and events and just fun times, and that's really fun for people of all ages. But yeah, I would say that sounds good.
And then there was questions about COVID. I'm glad this came up because I meant to cover this and I totally spaced. So thank you, Amy. The town's interesting. We have about 50% vaccination rate in town right now. So it is a little bit for people who are like coming from a city where maybe like vaccinations are more common. It is, more high risk in that regard, but it's also in a very remote town far away from the city. So it's like what we do as a program, what we found that works best is that we just keep a very close eye on the rates of cases as they rise and fall. Like I'm actually from Minneapolis, but I'm in Peonia right now, and I came in October, and the COVID cases, there was like 7 or 10 people in the entire county that had positive cases, but then after Halloween it went up. So then we made accommodations and kind of rearranged how we were interacting with people. That being said, we do prefer and require people attending who are able to get a vaccine to get one for multiple reasons. One, to keep the other residents safe, and 2, since it is a town where there are unvaccinated folks and you'll, probably be coming from somewhere outside of Peonia, we don't want to be bringing in any additional COVID into the county and try to keep everyone safe. So, but when you're in the residency program at elsewhere, like we kind of encourage people who are staying in that building to communicate and make agreements together about what feels comfortable. So, during this past month in October, we had 4 residents. Everyone was vaccinated, but people had varying comfort levels with socializing in town. People wear masks, but then everybody will crowd into the one town bar on Friday night. And so what we encourage people to do is default to the people who are most risk adverse. So I think, making agreements and figuring out where everyone's comfort level, and we can facilitate that conversation too as part of like orientation to make sure that everyone feels safe and communicating and needs are being met. And I will say that, just 10 minutes outside of town, they're doing booster shots, and I've been seeing a lot of people going and getting their boosters here, which is really great, and more people are getting vaccinated. So it's changing, but that's where it's at right now.
Yep. Thank you for that question. I see one more question here. When are artists notified of acceptance? And is it the submittable application only or follow-up interview? That is a great question. Right now we have the notifications slotted for early to mid-March. It is only the application. We don't do follow-up interviews. We do have, so the cohort of artists that were here last month as part of the Parent Residency, they are getting an honorarium to be the jurors this year for the open call, which is kind of what we like to do. It's kind of like our second year doing that because they've been through the program, they know elsewhere, their parent, you know, it's we want to keep them involved with the process. So anyway, so those are the jurors, and we have it slotted for mid-March, early to mid-March, and we do have a wait list. Like, we choose our top, or they choose their top. I'm not really involved with. They choose their top, and then we also have some people who are next runner-up if the top 4 artists aren't able to come anymore, and that's actually, we've actually have gone into the wait list for last year's residency, and so yeah, and then we'll let you know, and then the residency is in July, and we'll probably meet once. We communicate a lot over email, and then we meet with all the artists at least once before they arrive, so they can get to know each other, know who else is in their cohort, talk about what they're excited about and what they want to do. Okay, let's see. I know we're running out of time here. Thank you all for coming and listening and being so great.
There was
just one last quick question.
yeah.
Yeah, you guys were talking about auxiliary spaces in terms of also like studio space for parents. If you know you're in one of the apartments with your family, having an additional space that can be more of a workspace. Do you feel like, are they assigned to whichever, like the basement has this space, or is that flexible too? Do you just tailor that to who comes? As we're filling out the application, how should we be thinking about communicating those needs? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the basement apartment, like we were showing pictures of it, it is a fully independent space in the way that it has a kitchen, bathroom, studio, the bedroom, the sauna. And so if that seems, and you know, so does the main house, because there is only one artist up there, but just depending on what style you like more. This past time, the person in the basement used the gingerbread house as their writing nook, where the main house person has the suite, which is the upstairs with the bathtub and the 2 bedrooms, and they use that main house kitchen, and then they have that larger studio, that main studio, and then they also have access to the loft. So in the way that I see it being balanced, it makes sense for the basement person to have access to the gingerbread house if they need to stretch out their practice, or if one of the kids wants to stay there. I will say that if you have younger kids, you might not want them to be in the gingerbread house, because it's the building outside and it's a like lofted bed. So, but you know, like I said, we have that this like bigger couch, which is really comfortable and like worked really well as a bed for a 5-year-old. But also we can get some air mattresses if people need more bedding, or just drag one of them down. We are very open to people shifting furniture around to whatever makes them feel like, yeah. So hopefully that answered your question.
For sure, thank you.
Yes, I have another question here. My practice involves community engagement, and would the community be willing to gather for performance and a spray paint allowed? So yes, I would say, obviously too, depending on COVID safety and the comfort level of everyone, community engagement is awesome. We love community engagement. We love performances. Depending on what it is, it can be outside, it can be inside. If you need more of a dance hall space, you know, we have connections to the Blue Sage Center for the Arts, which is the local sort of gallery and dance hall space around the corner. If you want it at the theater, we can help you talk to the theater there. So yeah, so we would definitely be open to that and open to helping make that happen. And spray paint, I would say, people have used spray paint, but outside, in the backyard, away from any open windows or doors, and with, you know, stuff like cardboard or whatever on the ground, so it doesn't permanently stain the ground. Do you have anything to add to that, Madison? Oh, you're on mute.
I would say I don't think so. I was just catching this last kind of question at the bottom here, kind of related. Can one include a community workshop at one point during the residency, and could we have access to a kiln? I believe the answer is yes to both. Community workshops are encouraged. I think people get really excited here when artists come into town and they get to learn something new. There's a lot of people who, just over this weekend, Peonia had its holiday fair, and somebody came up and was being like, when are you going to do more classes? We want more workshops. So, Elsewhere provides a lot of like local programming, and I think people get really excited when new artists come into town and get to learn new things. And yes, there is a kiln that Peonia Clay Works is an organization here, and there's a lot of really incredible potters and ceramic artists that live in town doing all kinds of stuff. And a lot of them are past Elsewhere residents or past board members or founders of Elsewhere. So we have a good relationship with them and can definitely get people connected if they need a place to fire some clay.
Yeah, I will say with that, there is usually, we have a connection with them. There's usually an additional fee because, having a kiln and firing a kiln, all that stuff is pretty expensive. So just depending on how much access you want, there may be a fee as part of that, but we can definitely connect you to the people who run that, and a portion of your stipend or something could be used to have access to that space. So that looks like that's all of the questions. Want to be respectful of people's time, so if there's no more questions, then we'll let you all go tonight, and thank you so much for coming and listening and asking so many great questions. If anything else pops up in your mind, feel free to email me at info@elsewherestudios.org.
Yeah, thank you so much, everybody, and best of luck with your applications.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful
Thank you.
evening.